Hello. One of the things which we have to deal with this year is the fact that the majority of you will be working from home and not at the university, and indeed the course will be taught as an online course. Now, in order to do that, we're going to have to install certain pieces of software on your local PC. This software is already installed on the PCs at the university, although at slightly different versions, and I'll explain what that means. So if you are able to and wish to come into the university and use the labs, you will be able to book a machine using the library, and you could work from the lab machines. However, I would recommend that you actually go down this route of getting your own local PC, have the software installed, and be able to work wherever you want to then from home. So this is really about how do we install the software. And so let's get started. So the first thing to say is that I'm going to be covering installing on Windows. And I am aware that a number of you may have machines that aren't Windows based, most probably Mac based machines. I'm afraid I'm not going to cover the installation of that. I don't have access to a Mac, and so I'm not able to try out the instructions. But I think a lot of the instructions you need, in fact all of them, will be available online. You'll just have to search to find them. And it is possible to get all of this software working on Mac, no problem at all, as indeed it is to get it on a Linux machine if you have a Linux-based laptop, though I don't suspect many of you do. But I'm going to cover Windows, and at least this will give you an idea of what you're looking for if you have a Mac. But as I say, I'm not going to be able to give you help with that. If anybody does actually manage to do the Mac and would like to put together a presentation on how to install the software on the Mac, then that will be wonderful and it'll be very helpful for everybody. But we'll leave it at that for now. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to start by installing the Java development kit, in this case JDK 11. We're going to install Apache Maven, Netbeans 12, a UML plugin for Netbeans, Apache Tomcat, which is a web server that is used in Java environments, and we're going to install Git and also diagrams.io. So quite a list of software. I am providing you with this PowerPoint chart which will explain things, and the PowerPoint chart will be available up on Sol. I'm also going to provide some actual demonstration videos where I've installed on a Windows 10 machine from scratch all of the software which is included here. So this presentation will include both practical demonstrations and also me taking you through these slides. You probably don't need to go through the whole presentation end to end. What you need to do is to follow a section, go and do it on your machine, come back and do the next section, do it on your machine, come back. And that way you can work your way through. It is sequential. You obviously have to get Java installed before you can install anything else. So start from the beginning and work your way through. And we'll go from there. So let's look at the first thing we need to do, which is Java 11. Now, before I go any further, I have to explain a little bit about the difference between Java 11 and Java 8, which is on your machines at the university. Java 8 has now gone end of life, which basically means that although it is under certain circumstances being supported by Oracle, they have officially said that Java 8 is now no longer being supported. And so we do need to move up to the next long-term support version of Java, which in our case is Java 11. Now, Java development has actually moved on well beyond Java 11. I think it's around about 14 or 15 now, but Java 11 is a widely used or increasingly widely used version. Unfortunately, due to the COVID situation and other reasons, the university is still on Java 8. Now, this doesn't pose a problem for us with respect to the programming we're doing because, in fact, all of the code that we're going to be writing is basically going to be using Java 5 level code. We're not going to really be using any features beyond that. But the reality is that if you're at the university, you'll be in a Java 8 environment, and if you're anywhere else, you'll be in a Java 11 environment. And if you've bought a new PC, almost certainly it will have Java 11 installed. Rather than Java 8. So Java 11 is what I'm targeting with these instructions, but everything that we do in the course will work on a Java 8 machine. Now, the other thing to say just about the differences between Java 8 and Java 11 are that the problem with Java 11 is that the Oracle and those who do Java introduced a packaging system with Java 11, and they removed a number of the core features in Java 8, deprecated them, and said, well, if you want these, you have to install them using the package system. So it basically means that although all these features are still available, they aren't available on a standard Java installation out of the box. Now, all of the code that I had previously done with this class was written against Java 8, and there were certain assumptions about what features would be available. I have rewritten all of that code now so it will work with Java 11 and Java 8, but that was really the breaking change that happened. Certain things were left out. In particular, JAXB, which is the Java XML library, is no longer standard in Java 11. It needs to be pulled in as an external library. Now that's really all that I need to say about this, other than saying that I'm going to, in this example, install OpenJDK from Red Hat. This is basically the Red Hat distribution of the OpenJDK project. OpenJDK is an open source version of Java to which Oracle are major contributors, and indeed the Oracle JDK is basically again a version of OpenJDK plus a few extra Oracle things, but fundamentally it's all OpenJDK. So OpenJDK from Red Hat is available without charge, and that's why we're using this in this example. Okay, so that's what my example is going to be and install it. So how do we install Java 11 on a PC? If you already have Java 8 on your PC, it may well be a good idea to remove that first, okay? But these instructions will allow you to have Java 11 and Java 8 on the PC, although obviously only one of those can be used at any one time. You can download the OpenJDK installer from Red Hat. And this is the link. You will have to sign up for a Red Hat account. Doesn't cost you anything. Gives you access to a lot of programmer resources, which you may actually find interesting. But it allows you then to download the JDK MSI. And we are going to install the Windows 64-bit version. Basically, you double-click on the installer, select all the defaults, and proceed to the install. And you need to have administrator privileges on your computer to be able to do this, but it's your own machine. You should have no problem. Okay, so that's how you install the JDK. But that's only the first thing we need to do. We now need to set up environment variables. Okay, so to find the environment variables, what we need to do is to right-click on this PC on our laptop. There is a slightly different way of doing this as well, but I'll show you that in a minute. You right-click on it, and you'll see that there's properties. You select the properties. That will bring up this particular window here, and what we want to do is select Advanced System Settings. We select that, and now alternatively we can go to the control panel and we can edit the system environment variables. It will bring up the same thing. So if I right click on Advanced System Settings, or if I go down this route, open the control panel and searching for system environment, eventually I will get to system properties. Okay. What we need then to do is to click on environment variables, which will bring us up to this window here, environment variables. And under environment variables, not under the user variables, but under the system variables, we need to set up the path, which is going to allow us to be able to find Java on our class path whenever we actually run a Java command. So we double click on path, and we actually need to give the path the location of the JDK. And we can see here, in my case, on this machine, C, program files, Red Hat, JDK, OpenJDK, bin. And remember, it's the bin directory that you need to go for in this, okay? And you add that into your class path as the first thing on the class path after sort of the system bits of the class path. And essentially, that's the job done, okay? We also, and this isn't always necessary, but it's worth doing while we're here, need to include a variable called Java Home. So again, we create a variable, we call it Java Home, and we point to the JDK environment without the bin on the end. We're not looking at the bin file folder because we're not looking for the executables. We're just looking for the home for Java Home. Okay, so that's another variable we need to set up. We now open a command window and we can type in Java version, and we will get the version of Java we're running, which should now be version 11. or we can tap in Java C, which will tell which version of the Java compiler we're running, and that should also be 11. Okay, and then we can also type set in the same window, and it should give us, yes, we have set Java home, and that is correct. And we also, on our path, can see that if we work our way down the path, yes, we have Java 11 on the path, okay, which is how, whenever we type Java, we find this version of Java 11. That's how the system finds that. Okay, so that is how we set up the JDK and how we set up the environment variables. If Java 8 is already installed, then in this environment, when we look at the path, if I go back to the path, we can see that it will also have Java 8 in here. Okay, now you'll want to remove all references to Java 8 from the path and just leave Java 11, and that will be fine. And when you're checking out Java C and Java, using this command here, Java C, Java version and Java C version, make sure that these two versions are the same. Then you know that you've installed the JDK and not left some remnants of Java 8 behind, or you don't have one version of the Java Development Kit JDK and one version of the JRE, the Java Runtime Environment. You don't want two things on the same machine. Okay, that is how we install and test the JDK.
Hello, so in this video I'm going to show you how to install Openjdk 11 on your Microsoft PC. This is Windows 10, and I'm not going to provide any instructions for how to do it on a Mac, but there's plenty of stuff online if you Google it to see how to do the same thing on a Mac. But in Openjdk, there's various versions available. I'm going to install the Red Hat Openjdk. And so if you just Google Openjdk Red Hat, it'll take you to this link. And under this link, you'll see a number of downloads that you could choose. I'm going to use the MSI. So I'm not installing Java 8. I'm installing Java 11. So the latest Java 11 MSI is what I'm going to download. Now, to download this, you will need to have a Red Hat developer account, which is very easy. You just sign up. It's free. There's lots of information available for you as a student, so it's a good thing to do anyway. But that will allow you to download this package. So I've already downloaded the package, so I'm going to click on the MSI and install it. Lots of warnings, that's fine. And what it should do is say that as an administrator, am I willing to run this file? Yes, I am. And then it'll go through the installation process. So here we go. GPL license. Yes, I accept the terms. Happy with that. Next. I'm only going to install the Openjdk runtime. I'm not going to install any of the mission control stuff. Next. And go ahead and install it. And it'll take a little while just to find the files and install. And while it's doing that, I'm just going to show you my control panel. Oh, here we go. So on my control panel, under Programs and Features, you can see that I already have Java 8 installed. Okay. Now, the way I'm doing this, it should be possible to have Java 8 and Java 11 both on the same machine. If you have any problems, remove Java 8 here. You just uninstall the program. But I'm just leaving as it is because I'm going to change the class path to use the right version. Okay. So going back to the JDK, we've now installed. So we just finish. And the JDK is now on the machine. But unfortunately, if I launch a command window and type Java version, you can see it is still pointing to the 1.8 Java version and not the Java 11 version. So we need to do something to fix that. If I just look at the Windows installed programs now, just going to refresh this. We should see, here we are, Red Hat OpenJDK 11 is installed, but we also have the Java 8 stuff installed. Okay, so how do we get Windows to recognize that we have now installed a new version of Java? Well, what we do is we right-click on this PC, go to Properties, and under the Control Panel items, Advanced System Settings, we will be able to look at the environment variables. And under the environment variables, if we go down, we can see we've got path. And I'll double click on the path. And we can see that at the moment, it's looking at the Oracle Java path, and the Red Hat JDK 11 path is after the Oracle Java path. So what's happening is that whenever we type in Java, it searches first on the Oracle Java path, which will find Java 8, where actually we want it to be going to Java 11. So what we do is we can, first of all, delete this because we don't need it, and then we can move this up just to make sure that it's always seen first before we do anything else. So we can now close that, and we can finish this. Actually, the other thing that is useful to put in at this point is a new variable, and we call that Java Home. Now, this isn't always necessary, but it's useful to do because certain programs do need it. So where is our Java installed? Well, if we look under Program Files, we can see that the old Java 8 is still here under Java. But if we look again, we can also see under Red Hat, we've got the OpenJDK and the bin folder there for OpenJDK. Now, what I actually need to do is to just copy the location of OpenJDK 11, and I'm going to put that into my Java home variable. Okay, so that then says that the Java home is here. That's where the Java installation is. And the path is actually, if you look at the actual path itself, it's got OpenJDK 11 first before everything else. And if we just open that to edit, we can see it's right at the top. Okay. So, having done that, we can now open a command window. And if I type Java version, we can see it's now Java version 11. And if I type Java C version, we can see that it's Java C, again, 11.0.8. So what we have done is we have set up our environment so that we are able to access the right version of Java.
Okay, that is how we install and test the JDK. So the next thing we need to do is to install Apache Maven, and we can only do this once we've done the JDK. So this is the next step. Okay, so what is Maven? Well, I'm not going to go into deep detail about it here, except to say that it's an automated build system which downloads project dependencies from Maven repositories, which are up on the internet, and builds, tests, and packages Java projects. Maven and Gradle, but initially Maven's very, very, very widely used. Gradle has come along later and is now used particularly in projects involving Android. But these build systems are basically how all professional Java projects are now built. And so it's very important that we learn this, and Apache Maven is what we're going to use. Effectively, you download it from the link here, Apache Maven. Download the latest version. Currently it's 3.6.3. It may have bumped a version by the time you get to it. But you download the latest version of the zip package, okay, because we're going to do it on Windows. And there are many variations on these instructions online. And if you look at the install instructions on Apache Maven, it'll tell you how to do it. There's also instructions up there for Mac. But basically, this is what I did. I unpacked the zip file into a location close to my C directory. Now, I like to put everything in the same place, so I always create a folder called devel, and then inside that I put Maven, Apache Maven 3.6.3. And then I create a class path reference to Maven bin, exactly the same as you did for the JDK. I'll create a system variable called Maven home and also M2 home. You need them both for historical reasons. Doesn't matter why, just do it. And basically point that at the location that you have put your Apache Maven. Any other instructions may put Apache Maven somewhere else, but the effect is exactly the same. You create a place where you've put your Apache Maven and you've pointed your class path at it so that the system can find it. And then you open a command window and check Maven works using Maven-version. Okay, so again, I talked about the class path. Here I can show you that I've gone through the environment variables and I have put Maven after the JDK, and the bin is obviously what we're looking at. And then I have also created M2 home, pointed it at the location of Maven, and I've done the same with Maven home here, you can see. Okay, so you do both and we're done. And then to test it, you just type, obviously this is my Java C versions, which is just proving that. Now we type in MVN version and we should get a number of bits of information that tell us that Maven is working fine. And again, if we type set, we can now see that M2 home and Maven home are set. Just to say that you need to open a new command prompt after you've put these variables in. If you've got a command prompt already open, it will not pick up the new class path variables until it's closed and reopened. So always open a new one when you're doing these tests. Top tip.
So the next thing we're going to have to do for this class is to install Apache Maven. And again, if you go to Maven, the Maven page, and look for a download, it's if you Google Maven Apache, you'll find this. You'll see that there's a download page. We just pick up the latest version of Maven. And again, we want to download the Apache Maven bin zip. Okay. So I've already downloaded this, and so here we go. Let's copy that file. And again, I'm going to put it in the same place, or more or less the same place I put Apache Tomcat, under devel. So let me create a new folder called Maven. And I'm going to unpack Maven into that folder. Okay, so Apache Maven is at this location, and that's the bin file for it. Now, what we actually need to do is to put this on our class path. It's exactly the same thing that we had to do for our Java. Okay, so in order to do that, then we open our properties on our PC. We look at our advanced system settings. We go to our environment variables, and we go down to the path. And I'm going to add in a new path, which is going to be our Apache Maven bin file. Okay, so what that then means is that we're able to pick up Apache Maven as well as picking up Java. And because Maven depends on Java, you can see the JDK 11 before it gets to Maven. Okay. Now, the other two variables we'll need to add onto this are one called M2 Home, which is the same location as we had previously, and also Maven Home. And we basically give it the same location, but without the bin on the end. Okay. Okay, so we've created a Maven Home variable, and we've created a Java Home variable, and we've created a M2 Home variable. These aren't always used, but it's just useful to put them in because the instructions say so, and some applications may need them. Sorry, I put the dash on the end. I didn't need to do that. So Java Home, M2 Home, Maven Home, all created. Okay, and the path has also been created. Right. So having done that, if we now open a command window, once again, we've got the command prompt, and I'm going to type Maven, MVN, small letters, version. And we can see that we actually now have the information. Apache Maven 3.6.3, Maven Home, Java version, blah, blah, blah. So we're all up and ready. So that's how to install Maven on a Windows environment. Again, instructions are available for doing the same online with a Mac, but I'm not going to cover that. You'll have to find that out for yourself.
Now we need to install Netbeans. Netbeans is the integrated development environment that we're going to use on this course. Other IDEs are available. If you want to use a different IDE, that is fine. I'm not going to mandate that you use Netbeans if you're happier with something else. Developers all have their own preferences. But I'm going to be doing all the examples in Netbeans, and all my videos will be based in Netbeans. There we are. We're going to be using Netbeans 12. And I'll tell you a little bit about the differences between Netbeans 12 and Netbeans 8. And let's get on and do it. So, okay, first of all, let's talk about the differences between Netbeans 8 and Netbeans 12. Basically, after Netbeans 8, Sun or Oracle, who were the original developers of Netbeans, said that they were going to contribute it to the Apache Foundation, and it would no longer be hosted on its own site by Oracle. So they have contributed versions of Netbeans after Netbeans 8 into the Apache Foundation. They still contribute heavily to the project, but the project is now owned by the Foundation, and it is widely adopted across the industry and not just used by Oracle users. Okay, now the problem is that although Netbeans 8 moved across, not all of the plugins for Netbeans 8 have yet moved it into Apache, and some of them may never move. But that's okay. We can still use those easy UML plugins, which is what we want to use, and some of the older ones. But we need to do a little bit of extra work to use them. The other thing, of course, is that Netbeans 8 worked on Java 8. Netbeans 11 does not work on Java 8. It only works on Java 11. Netbeans 12, I was actually under the assumption that Netbeans 12 wouldn't work on Java 8, but it turns out from the release notes that it can work on Java 8 and on Java 11. So we just scrap that. But basically, what we're saying is that in our environment, we really would prefer to run the latest version of Netbeans on the latest version of Java. So use Java 11, use Netbeans 12. Okay, and then we'll port across the plugins. Now, the other thing we need to worry about with Netbeans 12 is that whereas with Netbeans 8, when you install it, you get Tomcat and Glassfish and other servers automatically within the installer. You don't get that with Netbeans 12. When you run the installer, all you get is Netbeans. We need to install Tomcat separately. So again, I will show you how to do that. So the rest of this chart really just talks about, you know, the difference between Java 8 and Java 11 and about the backwards compatibility issues, which, you know, that's the way it is. You know, what I'm basically saying is that at the university, if you're using university's lab machine, it will use Java 8 with NetBeans 8.1 because that's what's there. But I still recommend that you get yourself NetBeans 12 and Java 11 if you're working from home. And all of my material has been updated to NetBeans 12 and Java 11 for you know, good reason. Basically, I want you to be using the latest stuff, and I don't want all of this material to be left behind. You know, next year, and the university will upgrade everything. That will happen. So we're moving ahead. But like I say, this stuff will still work at the university. You don't need to worry about that. I've tested it all out, hopefully. Okay, so install Java 11. Obviously, we've talked through that. Then we need to download the Apache 12 NetBeans Windows installer, which again is the exe file for when, you know. Again, I'm assuming, I doubt anybody ever uses 32-bit Windows now, but it's 64-bit. And you basically install it, and you know, there will be lots of choices and settings. Just accept all the defaults and you'll be fine. Okay, and there we go. We will have NetBeans installed.
Okay, now I'm going to show you how to install Apache NetBeans. Now, what I'm going to actually use is the Apache NetBeans long-term ship, the LTS version. Okay, so that's Apache NetBeans 12 LTS, NetBeans 12. The feature update 1 would probably work fine, and I wouldn't have any issues if you installed that instead. But the long-term ship has had more testing, and so it's probably more stable. So we're going to go with that. So anyway, we download Apache NetBeans, and it'll point to a mirror, and it'll allow you to download what you need to download. And I'm going to go for the Apache NetBeans Windows installer, which is this file here. Okay. Now I've already downloaded it, so I'm going to go to the installer, Apache NetBeans Windows. I'm doing a double click on that. And usual requirement to validate. And now it's going to configure the installer. Now this will take a little while, but really what we're doing is we're just setting up our environment. Here we go. Next, happy enough with that. Accept the license terms, yes. And it's going to install it at this location. And look, it's actually using the Red Hat JDK, which is exactly the one we want to use. So let's install it. And having installed NetBeans, I should now be able to launch it. And there we go. We have NetBeans up and running.
Having installed NetBeans, we now are going to go on to install the EasyUML plugin, which we're going to use with NetBeans to draw our UML diagrams and also to generate some code. So, as I said before, the EasyUML plugin basically, you know, was written and tested against NetBeans 8.1. but I have used it and it works very well, quite happily, against NetBeans 12. Essentially, the code between NetBeans 8.1 and NetBeans 12 hasn't changed that much. The only thing they've done is backwards compatibility against the later version of Java. Put in some later Java 11 stuff which we aren't going to use. So most of these plugins that worked against 8.1 will continue to work quite happily against NetBeans 12. It's just that they're not available in the NetBeans 12 repository, so you have to manually install them. So what you do is you basically go to the plugin and you download the installer, and then you extract this zip file into a folder. Doesn't matter where the folder is, but you have to extract it from the zip file into the folder. And then on NetBeans itself, if you go to Tools, then you go to Plugins, you open the Download tab and you click Add Plugins, and you basically select all of the NBM files. That's all of these files here that are in that EasyUML folder. Select all of those and click Go, and any defaults just select as well. And basically you'll have to accept probably a license and things, but that will install the EasyUML plugin. Okay, so you select all of those, and when you've actually installed the plugin, you will have to restart NetBeans just for it to pick up on itself. But once you've restarted NetBeans, then you can actually test out the plugin. And to do that, we basically go to the projects folder, we select a new project, and we should now see, which we wouldn't have seen before, under Choose Project, UML, and then the option of a UML Diagrams project. You click that, and we give it a name. And then essentially, once we've done that, we will have a UML Diagrams project in our NetBeans container. And then we can create a new class diagram, click, and here we see a class diagram, and we can start adding on classes onto the diagram. So just do a few classes and just check that that works, and you'll be fine. And that is how we install the EasyUML plugin in NetBeans.
So now we're going to install the EasyUML plugin into NetBeans. Now, one thing that's happened with NetBeans is that NetBeans has migrated from Oracle to the Apache Foundation. So from NetBeans 11 onwards, the Apache Foundation are hosting NetBeans and curating the project. But prior to that, it was Oracle directly. So we now have basically two streams of NetBeans up to version 8. The website basically refers to the Oracle version of NetBeans, but after that, the Apache website refers to the latest version of NetBeans. Now, over the years, a number of plugins have been contributed to NetBeans, and not all of those plugins have yet made it across to the Apache Foundation, but they are still available on the old site. And this EasyUML plugin, which truthfully hasn't been updated for a number of years but still works, is available for us, and we're going to take that and install it on the latest version of NetBeans. We can do that because basically the code base has not dramatically changed between NetBeans 8.2 and NetBeans 11, certainly in terms of this plugin. So let's start. So if we go to the EasyUML download page and we download the plugin, we'll have the opportunity to save the file. I've already done that, so I have this in my local folder. So the second thing we need to do then is to unzip that file. So I'm going to unzip it locally into this local download folder, and hopefully we can find it. Right, there we go. Here it is here. So this is all the contents of that zip file. So on NetBeans, if I just close the plugin manager, you can see under Tools, there is a Plugins tab. Click on that, and we'll open up the plugin manager. And we'll see that there are a number of available plugins, and there are a number of installed plugins. but among those available plugins are not the one that we're looking for. So how do we do that? Well, we use this downloaded capability, and we can add plugins, and it gives us the ability to look in a directory. And what we will do is paste in the name of that directory, and we can now see that there are a number of plugins that are part of this. So all of these modules need to be selected, and we open those. We can see they're now all available to us. 10 plugins selected, and we install them. You have to accept the license agreement. That's fine. Okay. We're installing untrusted plugins, but we don't need to worry about that either. It should be okay as long as we've downloaded the right stuff. And we're finished. And we should see now under the installed plugins that we have the easy UML. Probably need to start Netbeans. They're already installed. Okay. So we've installed those plugins. I'm going to restart Netbeans just to make sure that it's all working properly, but hopefully it is. So now we should be able to create a new project. And I want to do a UML project, UML diagrams project, next, and finish. You can see that way now I can create class diagrams. We can put classes into the diagram.
So now we're going to talk about how to install the Apache Tomcat web server. which previously would have come packaged with Netbeans, but now is packaged separately, and so we need to install it separately. But this is quite easy. So to install Tomcat, firstly, just to say that Tomcat is a Java web server. It's called a web application server, and it serves Java server pages, which we're going to be using in this project. So it's a very standard package, and it's used extremely widely across the industry. Basically, one of the sort of mainstays of many very large websites on the internet. So you're learning something that definitely you will be able to use. So we're going to use Tomcat 9, which the latest version of Tomcat 9, 9.0.38, works with Java 11. Earlier versions of Tomcat don't work with Java 11, so that's again why we're doing this. Download Tomcat 9, and these are the installation steps. There may be a few variations, but basically these are the steps that I've used. Again, you can Google around and see what how Tomcat recommends that they install it, but this is what I have done. Okay, so you basically unpack the Tomcat zip file, that's the one you want to download, into a location. Now I've basically done, as I said before, I've done it in my devel/Tomcat, Apache Tomcat 9.037. I've just unpacked that zip file into there. And then on Netbeans, I have gone to the Services tab. Okay, I have gone to the Services tab, and I have selected servers, and I've selected add server, and then under add server I've said I'm going to select Tomcat or Tommy. We're using Tomcat, that's fine. You then give it the location where you've unpacked it, so this location here is a location we put in here, and you give it a password. So username admin, in my case admin, and then password admin. Doesn't matter what you use, but I just suggest you keep it easy and memorable, admin. And you basically click next, and it will install the software for you, or at least it'll line it up with your Netbeans. Okay, so then we want to just test it and make sure that it works. So to do that, very simply, on the Services tab, we've now got Apache Tomcat server. We right click on it, we click Start. It will ask us to give it this username and password. Okay, do that. And then if we browse to localhost 8080, we will see that Tomcat is now running, and there is a home page for Tomcat from the Tomcat manager, which runs within Tomcat. And if we see that, then we know that we have installed Tomcat correctly, and we can then carry on and use it in our project. And that was how we install Tomcat.
So again, let's look for Apache Tomcat, Tomcat 9, and there's a variety of versions. We're going to go for the Windows zip version, not the Windows Service Installer, but the Windows zip version. Okay, and 64-bit. And I have downloaded this. So again, Apache Tomcat, whatever, Windows zip. Okay, and let's open that location. Now, what I need to do is to install Tomcat on my local machine. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to put it in the C drive directly. So let's just copy that file. And let's go to our C drive. And what I've actually created is a directory called devel, which I'm going to put all my development stuff in. Very importantly, it's right at the root of the C drive, because that means that you won't have problems if your class path is going to be quite long. So under this, I'm going to put Tomcat. So let me just paste. Oh, I thought I copied it. I'm creating a new folder called Tomcat. I'm going to paste that directory in there, and then I'm just going to extract that. And here we have Tomcat 9.0.38. Okay, so let's just right click on that, and then let's go back to our Netbeans, and under services, under servers, we don't have anything, but we want to add a server. And what I want to do is add Apache Tomcat. So I click on Apache Tomcat, I click next. And okay, so I need to do a little bit of download and activate to make it work. It's downloading some plugins. Well, we don't actually need these, but obviously the installer is deciding that it needs to install these as well. So anyway, we'll just wait for it to download these plugins. And finish. Great, at last. Okay, so now we need to find the server. So we copied the location of Apache Tomcat. That's where we want to tell it. And we can use the server location folder here, or we can create our own private configuration folder. But actually what we'll do is just stay with this. And I'm going to create a very simple username, admin, and a password, admin. And it will create a user if it doesn't exist. Okay, so then we finish. And we now have Apache Tomcat actually recognized by the Netbeans server. And I can actually do something with this. So if I start Tomcat, now we need to allow access in Windows Firewall. So that's fine, let's do that. If you've got a different firewall installed, you may also need to allow access. This is, just the thing you need to worry about. And it's basically saying that I'm allowing the Tomcat web server to publish information. Okay, so what's my application? So let's say admin and admin. And we should now have Tomcat running. Now we can check that Tomcat is running, because if I open a browser and open a new page, and I go to localhost 8080, we get the Tomcat homepage, and we can see that Tomcat is actually running. So that was how to install Tomcat, and that was how to associate Tomcat with your Netbeans IDE. And we'll go on from this to show how you can actually use this application.
Now, the next thing we need to worry about is installing Git for Windows. Again, from last year, you may already have Git installed, but we need this on your local machine. So what is Git? Well, Git is a version control system which was originally developed by Linus Torvalds for managing the contributions to the Linux kernel. Obviously, a very, very large and complex project with many, many thousands of contributors, and they needed a version control system that would work in that environment. And so Git is that system that was developed. There are predecessors you still might come across. CVS and Subversion were very good examples. I worked on these before I started working on Git. But the difference between Git and Subversion, for instance, is that Subversion requires you to have a website that you're saving all of your code to, whereas Git is fully distributed. What happens in Git is that you will save all of your commits to your local machine, to the Git repository in your local machine. But you can synchronize that Git repository with the GitHub repositories. So if you've got a GitHub account, you will synchronize your local Git account with the GitHub repository, and the two can be aligned. But there is no fundamental need for you to have GitHub or any other online repository. All of your version control is still done locally on your local machine, and you just synchronize between the two. Okay, that's just a bit of background. Okay, how do we install it? Well, very simply, we download Git for Windows from this location. We pick the 64 Git for Windows setup, and then we run the installer of administrator privileges. And basically, once we have done that, then when we right-click in a folder, we will see that they've got the option of the Git GUI here or the Git bash. I never use the Git GUI. You may find it useful, but I tend to feel that you're much, much better learning the Git commands. So I use Git bash. Bash is essentially a Linux-like window that gives you all the normal Linux commands, and it runs within Windows, and it allows you then to run Git and run other commands here just like you would in Linux. And if you open that window, run Git bash, and type Git version, then you should see something that shows you that Git has been successfully installed on your machine. And we will talk later about how we're going to use Git, but for now I'm just content that it's there and that it's working. Okay.
So in this video, I'm going to show you how to install Git on Windows. So again, Google Git for Windows, and you should find very quickly Git SCM and downloading package, and you'll see Git fast version control, downloading Git. We want to download the 64-bit on my machine for Windows, and I'm going to download it manually. So save the file. And to actually do the installation, I'm just going to right click on the file, run it as administrator. And we accept the license. It's going to install it in this location. And that's fine. We just install all of that. Just keep pressing next. That's fine. Keep going. Yeah, use OpenSSH, that's fine. Use the OpenSSL library, that's fine. Yeah, check out Windows style, commit Unix style, that's fine as well in this case. And the terminal's fine too. So basically accept all the defaults. And I'm going to set this not to use a credential manager, because I'm just going to put my credentials in every time I use them. and that's fine. I'm not going to use any experimental stuff. I'm just going to install it. Okay, so having installed Git, I can now use it. Now, one of my key things that I tend to do is I create a folder called devel, and then a folder within that called Git repos. And I'm going to create a folder called Git repos. And then within that, I check out all of my Git folders. Now I do it at that point because I like all of my programs to be as close as possible to the root of the drive. There are problems with Java if you've got very long class paths because Windows doesn't support long class paths. So keeping everything as close as possible to the C drive is important. If I right click now, we can see we now have the option of a Git GUI and a Git bash. I always use the Git bash. I never use the Git GUI. You can use it if you want, but again, I find it's better to use the command line. It's better to learn how to do that. So I'm going to open Git bash here, and we can see that we're actually in the folder Git repos. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to test that this is working by checking out the class code. So Solent2 public is where we're actually storing all of our code. And I'm going to copy this link, HTTPS. And I'm going to, in my git bash, type git clone. And then paste in the link. And what it does is it downloads all of the code for the class into a local folder, which you can then do work with. And if I type ls, you can see that we now have that Solent2 public folder. I can change to that. I'm now inside that folder, and I can check that I'm up to date by doing git pull. We see we're already up to date. So that was how to install Git on a Windows machine. It's also possible to install Git on a Mac, but I'll leave that to your own devices. Thank you very much.
So the final piece of software which you're going to need to be successful at this course is Draw.io, or otherwise known as Diagrams.net. Draw.io, since I started this course last year, has changed names to Diagrams.net, but Draw.io still works as a name and as a website, and so that you'll see Draw.io and Diagrams.net kind of used interchangeably throughout the material, but they are referring to the same thing, and it's basically happened because Diagrams.net has changed names. So Draw.io is basically a tool for allowing you to draw diagrams, and you can use it online. So if you have any browser with JavaScript enabled, you can click on Draw.io and it will allow you to upload a file or which contains a drawing, or you can create a file online and then download it to your local machine, and it can be actually worked on entirely in your browser, and that's been very successful, and that's what we've done very much in the past. However, on your local machine, it is also possible for you to download a standalone Draw.io package, which will run on your local machine. Doesn't need to run in a browser. It actually runs in a local package or desktop on your machine. Provides all exactly the same commands, and you can download it and then run it. So I suggest that you try both out. Try out the app.diagrams.net. And also try downloading the package so that you can open these drawings and use them and modify them on the machine. We will be using the EasyUML package for our class diagrams because we can generate classes in Java from that diagram, which can be extremely useful. But we will be using Draw.io for all of our other diagrams because it's quite a good tool. It's free and easy to save all of the diagrams that they have in your environment. And EasyUML only does class diagrams, but this can do other things for us that we might need. So that was Draw.io. So thank you very much for listening. Hopefully that was useful for you. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to enjoy this class, but really do make the effort before the class begins to try and get this software installed. I will help you doing it, but I really don't want to spend the first 2 weeks trying to sort you out. I really would like you to be doing this before then. Okay, thank you very much indeed, and talk to you again.